Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams. Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans all on tap. Breaking it down for us is Les Seats of CrescentCitySports.com and Saturday Down South. And Ricardo LeCompte of Channel 4 WLAE-TV Sports. Guys, welcome to the show. Always good to have you. I'd like to talk a little bit about what you guys are involved in before we get started. Failed to mention, we will talk a little high school as well. Both these guys cover high school, do a great job with that as well. First of all, Les, tell us a little bit about CrescentCitySports.com. Of course, Saturday Down South. What you got going?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Crescent City Sports, covering primarily the Saints and the Pelicans right now, a little bit of LSU, and of course we do a lot of high school stuff. We'll get into that in a minute, but I can get in a shameless plug first.
Please do.
Streaming live on CrescentCitySports.com on Friday night. It's 7 o'clock, kickoff at 7 o'clock. Pre-game shortly before that will be Jesuit and McDonough 35 from Pan American Stadium, two storied schools and programs, in a 16 and a 17 seed. So that should be a good matchup. And the winner gets Edna Carr.
There you go.
So looking forward to that, and still writing LSU and SEC for Saturday Down South.
Of course, Les is also part of the count of the original with Ken Trahan. He countdown to the original, which is now finished, but will still be part of the broadcast, right?
Yeah, we don't do our remotes during the season because teams aren't available, but I will be in the studio. In fact, I'll be joined by Coach Willie Brooks this week for the countdown, and then Ken Trahan will take over at 7, and we'll all have our regular coverage of the high school games throughout the playoffs, and looking forward to it.
It's 106.7 The Ticket, and also on Louisiana Network affiliates around the state. Ricardo LeCompte does a fantastic job covering all sports for Channel 4. I was just telling him that Fourth Down Friday show is awesome because I get all the scores and all the highlights of high school in a condensed amount of time. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Eric, thanks. And yes, it is the fastest 20 minutes in New Orleans prep sports.
It is.
10:15 Friday nights, we do Fourth Down Friday. It's also streaming on the WWL Plus app. And yeah, we get into the playoffs. So it's been a fast 10 weeks of the regular season. We're already at the playoffs, and there's a bunch of teams in the area that can make a run to the Dome. So I know we'll dive more into that, but it is kind of fascinating to do that. We've got that going on. We've also got Fourth Down on 4 Sunday nights at 10:35. I'll be hosting this Sunday night with the Saints on a bye. So when Saints are on a bye, Doug says I'm going to Pensacola and hanging out for the weekend. Don't blame him. Get away for a week. Why not? So I'll be hosting this weekend. We'll have Pelicans. We'll talk some Saints. I'll have Ross Jackson on, and we'll dive into some prep sports as well. And then the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. Doug and Ross's baby, and I love going on the show mainly because they provide me with free alcohol.
Yes.
Les East knows because Les is our latest guest on the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.
Absolutely.
That's on WWL Plus on demand right now. You can watch it. We dive into the Saints. We dive into a little. I love your thing on Paul Tagliabue the other day as well.
Yes.
He has a nice little sums up how much he had an influence here in New Orleans and the revival of the Saints after Hurricane Katrina.
Yes.
So check that out. And Les, did you enjoy the drink that we had?
I did enjoy the drink, Ross.
And what was the cocktail?
What was it called? Something.
It was a peach lemonade type thing. I
Okay.
can't remember what
Yeah,
the
it was.
official
It
thing.
had
But
lemonade.
it was Ross's drink. It was his creation,
okay.
and he actually made the lemonade like from scratch.
Really?
So I think he actually put the lemons in his like bicep and was
Yes.
squeezing it out,
Yes.
and then there was a mixture of some bourbon as well as some peach vodka. You don't think those things mix well, but trust me, in this cocktail with the lemonade, it was fantastic.
Ross is quite the mixologist.
I'm going to say
And
sports and of course being cocktails and mixology mixing very well.
Absolutely, and we don't imbibe until the end of the show because
Yes.
otherwise it could be a problem.
With good
But
reason.
Or that would be the most interesting show we've
Yes,
ever
it
had
would
if
be.
we started.
That's true.
Yeah, we
We
would.
might
yeah.
have to try that next
I'm
time.
going to suggest that to Doug.
But I
Ross.
apologize to Ross if he's watching for not remembering the name of his drink.
That's okay. Again, I will be watching the show and I'll be able to figure out exactly what it is. There you go. Hey, before we get started, we talk some Saints and of course the rest of the home teams. Let's talk about high school and with the playoffs upon us now. Guys, tell us a little bit about, again, which you guys are going to be covering. Also, again, some of the teams that will be playing this weekend.
Yeah, Edna Carr is just an epic team, but they're not going to be playing this weekend. So I'll start with I don't think St. Charles Catholic is playing.
They have a bye as well.
They have a bye as well. So those are the two.
Those are the only two number one
great
seeds that we have in the area as well.
And those are two great stories.
Yes.
What St. Charles Catholic won 4 games last year, and now they're back. They're number 1 seed, I believe. Edna Carr is just
a juggernaut.
It's a historic season. But they're not playing this weekend because they've earned byes. But he can talk more about Mandeville and Thibodeau, which is going to be his game of the week.
Yeah, that's our
which
game of
I
the
think
week.
is one of the marquee matchups in the area, if not the whole state.
Yeah, it is, and it's a fascinating story with Thibodeau as well. Lowell Narcisse, the former LSU St. James standout, first-year head coach at Thibodeau. And remember, Thibodeau's kind of been struggling the last few years. Here comes Lowell Narcisse comes in, and they go 8-2, and they're hosting a playoff game in the first round, which is a remarkable turnaround. It'll be fascinating kind of matching up with Mandeville, and we were talking earlier, like Mandeville last year, it was a shame that Nate Shepard got hurt.
Yes.
And we couldn't see Mandeville possibly get to the Dome because that team was solid. But behind Nate Shepard, that elevated into another level. Mandeville's back in the playoffs here. It should be a close matchup between both. We're hoping for a good game. That's why we made it our game of the week. If it wasn't that on Friday, I think another fascinating matchup that we have that's actually going on Thursday night is Bonneville and Riverdale. These two teams in Week 10 played for the district championship. Bonneville pulled away in the second half to win that game convincingly. And then they got to turn around and play again 6 days later. So it's just, you have district rivals and you have two teams that just played 6 days ago. We'll see how that kind of matchup goes. But that would have been our game of the week if it happened to land on Friday. But it isn't. But still, Mandeville and Thibodeau's a great choice as well.
And I think that was Bonneville's first
Bonneville's
district
first
title.
district championship since 1998.
Wow. So
Great high
that was a
school
huge
football,
game
sure.
last week, and it was so good for those two schools to be in the spotlight.
Right.
And they get to do it again tonight.
You guys mentioned Paul Tagliabue. I'd like to take a second again to recognize him because of, again, what he did for the city of New Orleans in the aftermath of Katrina, the largest man-made disaster in the history of this country. And of course, again, what the influence he had in keeping the New Orleans Saints here in New Orleans and not in San Antonio. Les?
Yeah, there were really two things that Tagliabue did. The first one, chronologically, was championing the idea of playing 4 games in Tiger Stadium, recognizing how important it would be to the psyche of the state, especially Southeast Louisiana, to have the Saints on Louisiana soil during that season. He recognized that right away. He said, we're not going to get in the way of any recovery efforts, but if it's at all feasible, I want as many games as possible played in Tiger Stadium. And Skip Bertman and Dan Radakovich and LSU were great in letting that happen. It was sort of backloaded on the schedule, so it would be removed from the triage operations that were going on on campus. So that was hugely significant. And then, of course, the biggest one was making sure that the Saints moved back to New Orleans in January of 2006, when there was a very real possibility from September on that the Saints were going to try and make a permanent relocation to San Antonio. And Tagliabue stepped in, said, that's not right. You're going back to New Orleans. And I think what he did, no one knew if New Orleans could sustain an NFL franchise at that point, but he made sure that New Orleans got the opportunity, and the community stepped up and sold out on season tickets, which they've done every year since then, bought the sponsorships. And one other thing I want to say, and I know some people are not going to want to hear this, but at Tagliabue's right hand, every step of the way, was Roger Goodell, who was his associate deputy commissioner. And I know Saints fans don't like Roger Goodell, and perhaps with good reason in some cases, but he was in lockstep with Paul Tagliabue on that, and New Orleans should be grateful to him for that at least. But it all started with Paul Tagliabue, who will always be remembered as a great friend of New Orleans.
No doubt. And of course also pushing the NFL to put in money to be able to get the dome back, and get the dome back as quickly as they did as well, right?
Yeah, and also he pushed for that Monday night game against the Falcons, on September 25th. They said, we're going to put you on Monday Night Football against your biggest rival, which just enhanced that whole reopening of the dome, and probably lit a little bit of a fire under the renovation effort, saying, you're playing on Monday Night Football, you better have that stadium ready. And of course, it wound up being such a magical moment, such a magical season, and it all goes back to Paul Tagliabue.
Right. I know you weren't here covering it, but what do you remember about it?
Well, actually, I was in Baton Rouge.
Okay, so you were in BR.
So I was in BR at the time, and I still remember we did a story. I was working as a news photographer at WBRZ at the time. And I remember in February of 2006, we got me and another reporter, we got a good look at the Superdome. And this was the first time I had stepped in the Superdome since Katrina. And I still remember seeing all of the furniture that had been, kind of looted out in the suites, all on the floor of the Superdome. It was just cement on the floor. They were still patching a hole in the roof. And they were like, our expectation is that we're going to have this done by the Saints opening season. It was just like, man, there's a lot of work to do. The next story I had was, so months later, I get the assignment where I'm with one of the other reporters as well, and we're covering the Rebirth game that night. So we're the news side angle of that, while sports obviously is doing the sports. So I'm out there on the field, and it's funny because I'm looking outside and I'm just seeing the excitement of Saints fans right outside the dome as they're getting ready to just reopen the Superdome for this Monday Night Football game. I remember going inside and just looking at, they've got the turf down, they've got all the seats, the lighting is set, and I'm like, man, they really did it. Like, they got it done. They got this place ready for this Monday Night Football game. And I remember being on the floor, watching U2 perform. They're doing, I've just seen all these celebrities on the thing, former presidents and everything else. And it was such a great night. And then that one moment, that block punt. I've never heard a sporting event be as loud as I heard it when they blocked, when Steve Gleason with the punt block, and how iconic that moment was. And it just was like, I could not imagine the Saints not being in this city. And it's so tied into the culture, into everything that the city is. And the fact that the Saints were able to get back to playing, being able to, hey, we're sticking around, we're going to be part of this rebuild. It's something where, like, as an outsider, I went, man, I'm falling in love with the city because of the fact that they're able to recover, rebound, and have this, and display this. And the spirit of that night, it's something that I'll never forget. It
was the best of times and the worst of times. And again, I still get emotional thinking about it, as we all do, again, that went through, again, the aftermath of Katrina. But
and while we're reflecting on that opener against the Falcons, we should point out Doug Thornton's heroic effort, and all of the people that worked with him to get that building ready. It was just a Herculean task.
It really was. And again, it showed that it really was the beginning of the rebirth of our city. There's no doubt about it. It was, and again, a symbol of that. Again, we can come back, and then of course Peyton coming in, Breeze coming in, and what transpired after that was magical. You know, leading up obviously to the Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl, which again most of us never thought we'd ever see in the history of that organization. We just hope we can see it one time before in the near future.
They're a long way right now.
In the near future. With that said, let's talk a little Saints. They're 2-8. They beat the Carolina Panthers 17-7. They are on a bye week this week. The big story this week is Tyler Shuck, 19 for 27, 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. He got sacked twice. But again, his poise, his ability to maneuver the pocket, his arm strength, again, finally seeing this offense get to the second and third levels. Guys, take it from here.
Yeah, we talked about this on the Ultimate Sports Show the other night, in that we've seen Tyler since OTAs and rookie minicamp, training camp, preseason games. And I think we had seen glimpses of everything that we saw on Sunday. He's obviously got all the physical tools necessary. He's got a strong arm and yet has pretty good touch to go with that. He's athletic enough to move around in the pocket, which he did exceptionally well on Sunday. Can run a little bit, very mature, very smart, very poised. I just didn't think we would see him put it all together the way he did in his second NFL start.
Yes.
I mean, it was the complete package. And he played extremely well. Now, I don't think this is going to be a linear progression where you can say, oh, okay, that's the starting point. Now it's just, everything goes in a straight line. There are going to be some setbacks along the way, but I think we saw what he's capable of being, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, to drive home that point, I remember Juwan Johnson after that game, the 52-yard in on that first series where he's escaping maneuver in the pocket. Juwan Johnson said he was the final read. He was the last read out of all that. So that is encouraging when you're seeing your quarterback not only extend plays like that, have that instinct to kind of maneuver around the pocket, but also keep his eyes downfield and kind of progress. And again, it was the best that we've seen of Tyler Shuck. And I think to your point as well, it isn't really linear. It's like, can he play at least like this or somewhat, even if it's 80% of this? Can he consistently do this in these final 7 games? That's going to be the biggest question. And certainly if he can at least, again, play at about 80% of how he played well in here, then I think that sets the Saints up down the road future-wise where you enter the draft, you enter the offseason, you don't have to necessarily go after a quarterback. You can address all the other issues that you've got on this roster. And this roster needs an infusion of talent. And you can spend those draft picks if if you're going to be picking in the top 10. You can spend those on talented guys, and you don't necessarily have to go shoot for another quarterback.
I would agree with both of you, and knowing, again, both the NFL film being the great equalizer, he will struggle at some point. Defensive coordinators are going to pick him apart and see what he likes to do, what his tendencies are, and they're going to try to make him do other things. So we'll see that. It's going to be interesting to see his progression going forward over these 7 games.
Absolutely. A couple of points there. One, schedule's a lot easier down the stretch. He's not, Tampa Bay's got a good defense, and Todd Bowles is a great defensive coach. But overall, there aren't a lot of great defenses in these 7 games. The other thing is, and I think this accounts for a lot of the improvement from his first start to his second start, is I think he is a quick learner and takes to coaching very well. And I remember talking to Doug Nussmeier about him last week, and he's talking about his first start, going over the film with him, critiquing the performance, and I think Tyler took all of that coaching to heart and applied it on the field at Carolina, and I think you're going to see him continue to do that over these next 7 games. So, yeah, you're right. He's going to start seeing stuff he hadn't seen before from defenses, but I think his adaptability is one of his strengths.
Yeah, and another example of that, I think part of the being on that scout team while you're watching Spencer Rattler play, at practices, you're going against the ones as a South King quarterback. So it's not like, I think that's part of the reason why we saw him kind of take that leap. It's just not like he was just thrown in and it was like, oh, this is new. Not only has he had the off season, but he's had these 8, 9, 10 weeks to kind of just sit back, kind of learn, and that does kind of to Kellen Moore, where he has pushed the right buttons in terms of going, all right, I'll let Spencer Rattler run his course. At the same time, Tyler wasn't ready. Could you imagine if Tyler was starting the very first game? You're throwing all of this at a rookie, and who knows where his confidence, who knows where he would be at this point. But I think he's managed, I'll give him credit for that, he's managed the quarterback situation well.
I think it was a smart move by allowing him to take the scout team because, again, we know that backup quarterbacks maybe get a couple of series of that in practice. This way, he was practicing every single day. Yes, he was mimicking the opposing team's offense, but as you mentioned, he was playing against the Saints' #1 defense every single week. So, again, that had to help his progression.
Yeah, and one of the reasons Kellen Moore got hired, the primary reason, is because he played quarterback and his track record coaching quarterbacks and offenses, and then you got Nussmeier as OC, and then you got Scott Tolzien as a quarterback coach, all played in the NFL. So, we felt like that would be great for young quarterbacks, and I think this is where we're seeing it come to fruition because they understand the value of him being on the scout team. And you can't just say, as I've heard some people say, that, they should have started Shuck from day one. Well, no, on September 9th, he wasn't going to be the player he was in Carolina. That time on the scout team and standing and watching and learning and not being saddled with the guy who was starting in a 1-8 start, all of that helped him be where he is now, and I'm that gives us something to look forward to the next 7 weeks.
I would think so, and as Ricardo mentioned, it gives them flexibility in next year's draft if he truly can be a #1 quarterback in the NFL. He got some help now. They ran the ball effectively. At 122 yards rushing, Kamara had 83 yards on 22 carries. They for the first time, it looked like they found the recipe to be able to open up the running game, which has been kind of dormant at times.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of factors in there. One is Shuck being able to hit some passes downfield early, loosened up the defense. I think even though they gave up a touchdown on the first possession, they weren't playing from way behind like they have in a lot of games. So that made it a little easier to get the run game going early, and it made it easier to stick with the running game because their average per carry wasn't great, but it was good enough and they were effective. So I think everything kind of came together. But that was one of the biggest surprises to me in the game was the way the offensive line played because they only had 2 of their projected 5 starters, with Fuaga being out in the trade of Penning and McCoy being done for the season. So if the offensive line can continue to play like that and they can get off to better starts, which they have not generally done, then everything else gets so much easier.
Yeah, those were my same points, and maybe it was a little bit on that offensive line. Maybe it was a little addition by subtraction with trading Penning, because Dylan Radins played fine at guard, and he's been that early on in the season when Penning was dealing with his injuries as well. But yeah, that's the big thing: is consistently can they carry this over to these final 7 games, and that's where the question is. Maybe Devin Neal helps a little bit as well, because I thought Devin Neal ran the ball pretty effectively, and again he's been great in pass pickup and pass blocking as well, kind of leaving Kamara. One thing I think could also open this up is get Alvin Kamara more involved in the screen game.
Yeah.
And the second they ran that one screen to Kamara and he picked up 15, it was like, why haven't you done this all year? Like, maybe implement that a little bit more. Again, it's the passing of Shuck, maybe implement some of that screen game and just help that. Those things can assist this run game. Just
seemed like, again, there were creases there that there haven't been all season long for the running backs. And you saw Kamara again really looking like he still had something left in the tank, where again there have been times this season where he looked like he was running into a brick wall. So that was encouraging from the again a makeshift offensive line. On the defensive side of the ball, they shut down the 5th best rushing attack in the NFL. Again, 73 yards rushing for the Panthers, 175 total. Dotto had 53 yards rushing. Again, he has been tearing up the NFL. What happened on Sunday that they were able to shut down the run?
Well, Demario Davis
was one. That was what I was going to say. Demario Davis.
Who had an S on his chest.
man, that was. I mean, we've seen so many great performances from him over the years, but man, that was an all-timer. He was all over the field. So I think he kind of set the tone early on, and the whole defense followed along. I think it's probably taken some time for everyone to get comfortable in Brandon Staley's scheme. It's new to everybody. They have some new pieces on the defense, and it doesn't just happen the first week. You probably hope it's not mid-November before it happens. But I think getting this deep into the season, there was probably some continuity and comfort there. And I think DeMario set the tone early on, and they just played really well. And, and Bryce Young, who had played well in Green Bay the week before, he's still a work in progress as a young quarterback, and I think they took advantage of that.
Yeah, it's basically scheme to stop Dowdle because he's been great over the last couple of weeks. And the fact that you also had, Ted McMillan was hampered a little bit with that hamstring. So it was really if you load up and concentrate on stopping the run, make Bryce Young beat you. And Bryce Young couldn't do it.
Right.
And that was kind of the game plan there. And yes, I think Demario Davis was that spark plug for that defense. The second he was there, they were assignment sound, they were tackling well, which they've been inconsistent in that throughout the year. But I think Demario set the tone. It was let's stop Dowdle. They did, and then you saw what Bryce Young couldn't do against this defense. And then part of that is, of course, the scheme that Brandon Staley has run, and I think you're seeing the players getting adapted to it a little bit more as we progress week by week.
And one other thing real quick is, and Kellen Moore's been looking for this all season long, it was complementary football. And the running game helped with time of possession and field position. The special teams contributed. It all fit together, and the defense did its part, and it also benefited from the other two phases.
When you're a bad team like that, you need all three parts to work in order to win games like this.
And look, the first drive for the Panthers, they had 2 penalties that, again, one of them took away, again, the Demario Davis interception, right? And that really helped them score. But after that, the defense shut Carolina down, which is something we have not seen with that defense in a while. Guys, I picked this team to win 6 games this year. And the reason why I picked them to win 6 games was I saw the back end of the schedule. These last 7 games, they're winnable. When you look again at Atlanta at home, at Miami, at Tampa Bay, Carolina at home, the Jets at home, and then at Tennessee and at Atlanta to finish up the season. These are winnable games. Maybe you say Tampa Bay might be the hardest one, that maybe not to be able to grab a win, but again, you throw out the records when it's the NFC South. Guys, your thoughts? Can they make a little run here?
Yeah, well, you make me feel a little better because I picked 6 wins too, and I was beginning to think that was going to look really bad at the end of the year.
I was looking at the back end of the schedule saying they got a shot here.
Yeah, and they do.
Yeah, they do.
I think they could have some wins along the way. It's going to be, the key is going to be consistency. I mean, the offensive line is going to have to establish the run to make things easier for Chuck. He's going to have to continue to grow, and they're going to have to play complementary football. But I think their confidence has got to be on the rise after the way they played last week. So, yeah, I think a few wins, maybe a winning record in those last 7 games is not out of the question. And that's going to be the real key. Coming out of this bye is going to be real interesting because I remember the first year, Sean Payton, I think it was 2006, they came out and they played the Ravens, I think, after the bye week. And John Harbaugh has always been great coming out of bye weeks. And they got beat bad. And the first thing Sean Payton said after the game was, well, that didn't work. His whole approach to how to handle the bye, it took him 2 or 3 years to figure out how to handle that.
He sent everybody to say, go on vacation or whatever one year.
Yeah, and they came back and they weren't ready to play. And so, it still took a couple of years. So that's hard. It's not obvious, but it's hard for a rookie coach to figure out how to handle that time off. I'm curious to see. They've basically had this week off, and they'll get back at it, I assume, on Wednesday. Okay. So we'll see how Kellen Moore handles it. But that will be a sign of growth, perhaps, in him as a rookie head coach if they come out and play a really good game against the Falcons.
We've got 3 smart people up here because we all have 6 wins. I said 6 wins as well for this team because, again, that back end of the schedule, the Jets don't scare me. The Titans are probably the worst team in the NFL, as I've been given that label to teams, week by week here. And the Dolphins, even though they're coming off that big win against the Bills, it's still kind of like, which Miami Dolphins team are you going to show up? And then, yes, when you get into the division, it does not matter. I would not be surprised if the Saints beat the Falcons next week. That's just what the NFC South is. And kind of just to wrap up what we saw last week, I made this point, and Les heard this thing. I think part of the reason why we saw maybe you saw Chris Olave and you saw Alontae Taylor perform and play really well, I think the burden of the trade deadline passing and them sticking around, I think that matters. And I made this point. There were 3 teams that made big moves before the trade deadline. It was the Jets, the Saints, and the Dolphins, because they traded away Jalen Phillips to the Eagles. All 3 won on Sunday. And it's something about just getting your team set, knowing like, all right, this is either our group or we bring in some new guys like Seattle. Seattle won big, but they brought in Rashid Shaheed, right? Yes. It's about getting your group settled and going, all right, now we know what we are. Like, we don't have to worry about the who's going to be gone, who's going to be in this locker room, come the trade deadline. Am I going to be traded? Chris Olave's name was being thrown in there. Alontae Taylor's name was getting thrown in there. That gets settled, and it's like, all right, I'm on this team for the rest of the year. I can just focus on this. And you see Chris Olave, over 100 yards receiving. Alontae Taylor, big interception in the fourth quarter that led to a Saints touchdown. Those guys just played loose. They played better. And I think it's because the weight of all that like uncertainty of am I going to be on this team or not was lifted. And I think part of like getting past that trade deadline made them just play freer in that game.
I had never heard that before. That's an incredible point.
That's a great point.
Really
and
is.
I would say for their teammates as well, even though they traded Penning and Shaheed, they didn't have a fire sale. So those guys you mentioned and the team as a whole can say, okay, they still believe in this group. They're not giving up on us. And I think that may have contributed to the mindset.
And then the next step for the front office is keeping guys like Taylor on this team who are unrestricted free agents at the end of the season. Ricardo LeCompte, Channel 4 Sports, Leslie's CrestCitySports.com, and also 106.7 The Ticket are our guest. I'm Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll hear from our underwriters. We'll come back. We'll talk Tulane, LSU, and Pelicans. Stay tuned.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for...
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Les East, Ricardo LeCompte, our guest tonight. All right, guys, we'll start with Tulane on the college game, 7-2, 4-1 in the American. Big win, 38-32 over Memphis. They got FAU this weekend. It's homecoming. Again, that's a 3 p.m. game, 2 o'clock pregame, 3 o'clock kickoff on the ticket for that shameless plug. As we are
there are no shameless plugs there. No shameless plugs.
But with that, look, we all said the same thing, right? Tale of two halves, right? I mean, Tulane came out incredible. Reds left 14 for 15, 284 yards, 3 touchdowns, had a rushing touchdown. And of course, the only drop was by Reed. The receivers were playing well. The defense was playing well, and then there were some adjustments, obviously, by Memphis in the second half, where Tulane really couldn't get it going. A lot of 3-and-outs and punts, but again, still were able to hold on with a big win after losing to Texas San Antonio. Guys, your thoughts on this win and what it does for Tulane now is they're kind of set up with the last 3 games of the season, which are winnable, to maybe get another shot at that American championship.
Everything changed in 3.5 hours in Memphis because they looked like they were just about out of it after that loss at Texas San Antonio, and it was such a bad performance.
Yes.
And then for them, credit to John Summerall, his staff, and the players to bounce back the way they did and dominate a good Memphis team for a half. And then even though Memphis made that push in the second half, they made the big plays at the end when they needed to win it. And so, now it's set up where they're going to be favored, I think, in all their remaining games. And if they get to the championship game by running the table, then all of a sudden the CFP comes back into the picture, and they'll probably need some help along the way, and they have no margin for error left, but they've put themselves right back in the middle of it, and it's going to be an exciting time at Yulman Stadium on Saturday and around the Greenies for the rest of the season.
Already sold out, by the way, for homecoming.
if you are a Power 5 team needing a head coach, you bet your first person on the list should be John Summerall.
There's no doubt.
And the one thing that worried me going into this Memphis game was all of the noise around John Summerall and LSU with that opening and the questions he was getting, and naturally, and we saw it kind of last year when his name was kind of in the mix after 1 year at Tulane. You saw kind of the slide of the team. You remember they lost four straight to end the season, and then they go to UTSA and lay that egg. And I was like, oh man, like it could get ugly at Memphis. It could get ugly. The way that John Summerall got that team ready to play Memphis. Defensively, and they shut down a really good Memphis offense. Really good Memphis offense.
Now, Lewis being injured really helped them.
That helps because remember he was a game time decision going into there. But it's still the fact that you're able to get this team focused and going. Hey, that loss at UTSA does not mean our season is over. Get them ready, and they go into Memphis and win that. John Summerall again. I don't know how long he stays at Tulane, but again, if you need a head coach, that should be the guy on the top of your list.
Yeah.
And the other part of that. Of why they were so successful, it was Jake Retzloff. He's going to be the key for if Tulane's going to make a push to win the American and get into the playoff. He has to elevate his game, and that first half was the best glimpse of what we can see. Remember, he just got on campus. A month before the fall semester kicked off. And it was going to take time for him to get in sync with his receivers, get in sync with this offense and learn it. That first half, that is the potential of what this Tulane offense is with Jake Retzloff making plays and knowing what they it's a really good offense. So if he can continue doing that in the final 3 games and kind of honing that and seeing if they can take that next step and take that next step before they get to a possible American Conference title game, then we can see Tulane, be one of those teams that you go, yeah, they deserve that Group of 5 playoff spot.
As important to Retzlaff is to the offense, Sam Howard is to the defense, and you saw how they played with him on the field on last Saturday.
Yeah, and he aggravated the injury in the first half.
I thought he was done.
It looked really bad, and then he came to the sideline. When he walked off, the greeting he got at the sideline was unbelievable because I think the teammates saw what we saw, and they said, "Oh, this is bad. He may be done." And he just popped up, came off the field, and I think that lifted the team. They were already playing well, and they finished the first half even stronger, and I think that was a big lift. But you're right, just having him on the field is so important. And that's what I like about Tulane is they're a complete team. And they're not a gimmicky team. You know, a lot of Group of 5 teams, well, let's go 5 wide, let's throw the ball 60 times and do what we got to do to try and compete with other teams. Tulane's a traditional football team. They can throw the ball, they can run the ball, they can play defense. I just love the program that Summerall inherited from Willie Fritz and built upon.
There's no doubt.
Right. And now you're kind of looking at, and it was funny because we were looking at schedules and how this kind of shakes out because remember the 3 teams that are now fighting for those 2 spots in the American, South Florida, North Texas, and Tulane. Right. And the easiest schedule out of those 3 is actually North Texas. North Texas is the one where you're like, all right, so it's fascinating to see if it's a 3-way, how that all that math works out. But yeah, to your point, Tulane, they are a fundamentally great team. They can kick the ball well with Patrick Durkin. Defensively, Sam Howard, who John Summerall said about Sam Howard, he goes, honestly, it makes me want to pay attention to defense more than when he's not on the field. To be honest, he brings that spark and that energy that defense was missing those last couple of weeks when he was hurt. And then again, offensively, they're really good. And you got to see that first half again when Retzloff is making plays, how dynamic this offense can be. So it is fascinating. Who gets that Group of 5 playoff spot because you also throw in James Madison, who has, I think it's more the reputation of last year and maybe even the year before when Kurt Cignetti was there, that, they have 1 loss on the board as well, but they're the ones who are right now the favorites to get that spot. But the fact that Tulane was able to do what they did at Memphis kept them alive in this conversation.
And I think when the committee, when it gets down to the end, they're going to be saying, who do we think can compete best in the CFP? And they're going to look at what Tulane did against Duke. Right. The Ole Miss game ain't going to look great, but it's Ole Miss. Right. But what they did against Duke and the way they started the season and then going into Memphis, the committee is going to have to look at that and think long and hard. Is there somebody else out there who's going to make us look better than Tulane will in the CFP.
Yeah, and
long way before we get there.
Right, and I think in that conversation right now, it's probably South Florida and Tulane, because South Florida's best win is at Florida. That's still, despite Florida struggling, you went on the road to beat an SEC team like that. I think it's South Florida, and you throw Tulane with their wins against Northwestern, against Duke, and then even though the Ole Miss one, you just go, well, that's a road SEC. But those are probably in the committee's eyes. Those are the two teams.
Now Navy in South Florida this weekend. So again, we
elimination game.
Elimination game, right there. And of course, again, as we mentioned, winnable games for Tulane all the way out here. You've got Florida Atlantic, as I mentioned, 3 p.m. Homecoming at Yeoman. Then they're at Temple, and then they finish again home against Charlotte on November the 29th. All winnable games for Tulane to be able to get into the American. And once you win the American Championship, you win that. You've definitely got a shot at the college football playoffs. All right, one last thing about Tulane, because we just can't ignore it. Summerall to everywhere, right? Guys, what's the chance of John Summerall being at Tulane next year, in your opinion?
Ooh, I think I would lean toward, if I had to put money on it, I think he goes elsewhere. Like, I don't think he comes back to Tulane. And it's just because of the availability of SEC jobs open.
Yes.
Like, now with Auburn in the mix there, Auburn's another possible spot. I just don't see him. I don't see the LSU pipeline. I know people talk, but I think Auburn's a really good
I think that's
fit.
the number one destination, in my opinion. And look, before, again, the circus started at LSU, I thought maybe Summerall might be an opportunity for him to go there. But again, with all the political, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, all the politics going on there, Auburn looks like the better job right now for him. His wife's from there. He grew up, I think, 20 minutes from Auburn. I mean, it just seems like a natural fit. And look, I say it every week. Tulane fans, don't worry, because the next great young coach is going to come to Tulane, because they see the foundation that's being built, and they see the opportunity to go to a Group of 4 school, Power 4 school, if you can be successful. So Tulane is set up now. No matter, again, whether Summerall moves on, just like Willie Fritz did, the next great coach is coming to Tulane.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say is Auburn also, he coached at Troy, so
that's
he knows Alabama.
That's a great point.
So that's another thing that makes that scary from a Tulane perspective. But one thing I will say is I don't think Tulane could ask for someone who would be more reluctant to leave than John Summerall. Yes. He was at Tulane before. He understands what the university and the program has to offer. He loves New Orleans. He has gone out of his way to get integrated into the community. And so eventually somebody is, and maybe it's this year, but eventually somebody makes an offer that Tulane can't match. But he's going to be as reluctant to leave as anybody that Tulane can hope for.
Great point.
And again, keep an eye on Blake Baker, a Tulane graduate, the guy that's again one great defensive coordinator, probably ready for his first head coaching job. That to me is a perfect fit for Tulane. Let's talk LSU. Again, 20-9 losers to Alabama. They're 5-4, 2-4. Don't sleep on Arkansas this week. They lost a lot of close games. Everybody thinks, again, you look at the record, thinks LSU's going to just roll over. Don't sleep on Arkansas. But the big story is the circus that is LSU athletics right now. Guys, take it from here.
Well, yeah, I mean, this couldn't come at a worse time for LSU. This is the most competitive environment for hiring a head coach at a major college football program that there's probably ever been. Because I've never seen this many in-season firings, this many big programs, Florida, Auburn, Penn State. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, and there's probably more to come.
You know it.
And LSU just finished off paying off Ed Orgeron. They're going to owe Brian Kelly $54 million, even though apparently they're trying to pretend that they don't.
They didn't fire him.
Right.
Yeah, so that's another black eye, the way they mishandled that entire thing. They're lagging behind in NIL money, okay? And they keep insisting the state's not going to have to pay a penny for any of this. Where's the money going to come from for them to compete with all these other programs and get themselves a big-name coach? I don't know who they're going to get. I think there's a very good chance that LSU fans are going to be disappointed with who they hire in terms of name recognition and resume, because the best people are going to say, I'm not going to go play for I'm not going to go work at that school where the governor's calling the shots and there's turmoil everywhere. They fired the AD, they got a new president, and there's all this confusion going on. That's a circus. I'm not going to go there. Now, that doesn't mean they won't get a good coach, but it's somebody, who's expecting them to go big game hunting.
They think Lane Kiffin's coming over. I mean, probably not.
Oh no, they're thinking Nick Saban's coming out of retirement, coming out for college game day to come to LSU. And that's the thing. It's there is a circus right now. I mean, it is. It's
embarrassing.
It is. But if you're a head coach, you don't care about any of that because you know that resource-wise, talent-wise, program-wise, LSU is one of the top jobs.
So you think they'll still go big name hunting?
I don't think they get a big name.
Okay.
But I don't think it's. I think you can get that second tier, whoever's out there. Like they could. It's still an attractive job.
Yeah, so I would agree.
Despite all the drama behind the scenes, like you're a head coach. How singularly focused are head coaches do they get? They'll be like, cool, like that. You deal with who you want to name as your AD or who's not your AD, and who you want. Give me my guys. Give me the schedule. Tell me where to show up every Saturday, and I have a team that should make it to the college football playoff. The expectations are going to be high at LSU, but the resources are here. It's still an attractive job. So despite all the circus, I think LSU is going to get a good coach. I don't I think what they need to do is get away from the Lane Kiffins and the Nick Sabans and go, hey, there's some good coaches out there.
There are. Drink this from Missouri.
Right. And don't be scared. And that's the thing. They're going to pony up money.
Right.
I know that Landry wants to do the incentive-based contracts and all that. It's every
nonsense.
Agent, every college football agent in the world is going to be like, no, give us our money and we want the buyout as well.
Especially when you know you got 4 years at LSU.
Right, exactly.
You look at the last coaches. 2 coaches won national championships, and again, they got 4 years. 4 years, and you're done.
Yeah. Right. 4 years, so it's going to be I think on par is going to be a 6-year deal. That's kind of where it's going to be. It's going to be a 6-year, no 10-year deal. You're not getting that anymore. But it's going to be a 6-year deal, and coaches are still going to be attracted to this job. So again, I think once we get through the noise, and I think part of the noise of Kiffin and Saban, that's part of the circus stuff, push that aside, find that guy, and there's plenty of coaches that would love to come here.
And just to piggyback on that real quick, assuming Verge Osbury is going to make the pick, which they tell us, I don't know if you got the governor and the board. But my advice to Verge, to whatever degree he is able to implement this, nobody knows LSU better than Verge Osbury.
I would agree with that.
There. He's been there 20 years as an administrator. Don't go big game hunting. Don't worry about the noise. No matter who you hire, some people are going to say it's a stupid hire.
Right.
Don't worry about any of that. You know LSU better than anybody else. Find the guy who, in your marrow, fits LSU perfectly. Hire that person. If they're successful, nobody's going to care where they coached at before.
Agreed.
Nobody's going to care who Florida hired. None of that matters. Get the right guy for LSU, and Verge knows who that person should be better than anybody else.
To your point, to me, Sumrall would have been the perfect fit because he's not the big name. You're not going to have to overpay, but he's a guy that can build a program. But now you wonder again, would he really want to get involved in all that? And there's always been the backstory of, again, LSU will never hire a Tulane coach. To me, maybe when we were growing up, that was an issue. I don't know if that's an issue today. Sumrall is going to be a top coach with a Power 4 school in the SEC. So if you're LSU, you would be foolish not to take a hard look at Sumrall as well.
They just hired a president from McNeese State.
There you go. There you go. They didn't look outside the boot, so you're right there as well. All right, on the field, but before, because I want to move on to the Pelicans, because that's another circus. What do you think happens with Nussmeier and Van Buren? Will they split time? In my opinion, Van Buren should get some snaps at this point.
Yeah, I think he will. Listening to Frank Wilson on Monday, I think the plan is they're going to continue to start Garrett, and Van Buren will be the change of pace Wildcat quarterback.
I thought it should be like that all season long.
Yeah, they should have done that going way back. They should have started that in the Ole Miss game.
Right.
When Nussmeier was struggling, they should have given Van Buren some snaps. So, I think that's the way it should be, and Frank sort of indicated that's the way it would be.
Yeah, that was one thing I was like, at least Frank Wilson did that Brian Kelly didn't. Send a message to Garrett Nussmeier. I know he's your leader, but at the same time, you have not been playing well. Sit. And let's have Van Buren at least run the off, at least do something. And I'll give credit for Frank Wilson for doing that against Alabama. It's we'll see if this little, like I always do, it's the old thing, like if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. So it's really like, but at least Van Buren gives you that option of running the ball and having a threat
change of pace.
of like, hey, I can escape the pocket and make a play, because we do not see that with Garrett Nussmeier. Teams know that, and when you can't run the ball, you need something else to kind of spark the runoff. And, like get Van Buren in there, at least run it, keep the defense honest, because it has not looked good against this like tough stretch of games that they've had against quality teams, is because like the quarterback play has been slipping and the offense as a whole has just been wildly inconsistent all year.
Like I said, as we open this segment, don't sleep on Arkansas. You can look at the record and say, oh man, Arkansas lost a lot of close games.
And they're getting healthy on the offensive line, and they have a really good quarterback.
Their quarterback is really good.
It was a mobile quarterback as well, which is, again, the Achilles heel for the LSU defense. All right, the Pelicans are 2-9. They lost to the Blazers last night, 125-117. They've had 4 blowout losses this season. They got a 5-game homestand, now 4 games left. Lakers, Warriors, Thunder, Nuggets. We found out this morning that Zion Williamson has been cleared to start contact. Okay. Guys, nobody likes to see anybody get fired, but it's not working. 21 games last year, you can blame it on injuries. You brought in a new general manager, new vice president of basketball operations in Joe Dumars, but yet, again, you kept the coaching staff in place. Most places, again, a new broom sweeps clean. What do you think is going to happen here? Again, the fans are restless here. The team doesn't seem to be responding. Does Willie Green make it through this homestand?
I think he makes it through the homestand if there isn't another 35-point loss like they've had so far. I'm a little surprised that when Dumars came in that he kept Willie Green.
I was too.
I don't know why he didn't want to just start with his own guy. But once you bring him in and you reshape the roster the way they did.
9 new players.
Okay, yeah, you got 9 new players, 6 of your most prominent players. Now you got to go win with this roster that I put together, and then guys are hurt early on. You've had 3 or 4 key guys miss multiple games already, and you're going to say, well, why aren't you winning already? I think you got to give him a little time to work with what you gave him to work with. And I don't think he's had that opportunity yet. But that doesn't excuse 30-point losses.
See, that's the issue.
So if they're competitive and they're playing better, then I think he deserves more time. But they got to fix their defense. They can't keep playing defense the way they've been playing it. I mean, they're giving up 120-something points, the 5th worst in the NBA. Last night, Portland's shorthanded, and they went out and had no trouble scoring. So I think he gets through the homestand, but given the way they play defense and their penchant for losing by 30 points, that could change any night.
Yeah, if they can rename the third quarter something different, so they don't like mentally, or I don't know what happens out of luck, and that's where it's kind of disconcerting for me, where it's like, is Willie Green getting through the players? Is the message just become stale, where they're just all right, because there's no excuse to be getting blown out, because that's an effort. That's an effort in the NBA, because in this NBA, you're down 30, you can turn it, you're down 20, the way that offenses go, you can go and get back into it. As Willie Green trying to survive, will he get to this homestand? I think there has to be, and this is kind of the issue, the reason why we haven't seen a change is because there hasn't been that embarrassing outlook, like everyone can see how bad things are. And that's usually when you see people who are making decisions pull the trigger. Like when you're seeing empty seats, when you're seeing an embarrassing loss. But one thing that the Pelicans, they don't have national television games. They don't. So imagine if they were on national TV on ESPN, they were getting beat by 40, and you're just hearing everyone on social media, you're hearing commentators going, man, this is ugly, this is bad. That spurs some change. At that game last night, in the 4th quarter, when we got 2 minutes to go, there was a small chanting section started chanting, fire Willie, fire Willie. They got lucky. The Pelicans organization got lucky because there was a promotion in that timeout where they're shooting the T-shirts. So it drowned out that thing. But there hasn't been like even though we're seeing on social media, we're seeing all this like fire Willie Green, do this, like make a change, that hasn't translated into like seeing it in the arena, seeing the product and people being displeased by it. And if that was just like a little louder, if that would probably spur this organization to make that change and get, because I think that change is needed right now. Like they need to infuse something into this team, and maybe that message, as great as Willie Green is as probably as a person, sometimes the message does get stale, and it's like we've got to make a change. Right. And if there is a bad loss, I mean, there has to be like the Lakers Friday night, for example. They lose by 40. Fans are booing. It's bad. Like it's got to be where it resonates to the front office, and they go, yeah, we've got it. We got to do something. But we haven't had that. Most of our losses, I think, outside of Boston was on the road too. Right. So there hasn't been that. It's just been like, okay, from a distance. But there has to be that uproar in order for a change.
Well, and part of it is a lot of people are still distracted by the Saints, even though the Saints are bad. They're paying so much attention to Tyler Shuck that they can't muster up enough anger to go for the Pelicans. Come January, if Willie's still in the job and they're still doing it, then people are going to pay attention and they're going to get angry.
To both your points, I would agree. He needed at least 20 games. Okay, that was the fair thing to do. With again 9 new players. On the other hand, there needs to be a shakeup of some kind. Whether it's a player getting traded, Zion. Okay, there needs to be a shakeup within this organization to be able to get people again. Not so much the fan base excited, but within that organization to get those guys starting to pay attention. Hey, you know what? You got to start winning some games here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the bottom line. Yeah. So,
but Derek Queen, Jeremiah Fears. You got some.
I was going to say Derek Queen.
And even Peavy.
Yeah.
Let's throw
like
Peavy in there
this
as
rookie
well.
class. This rookie class has been really good, and the Derek Queen to that point. You know, you don't trade, you do not trade unprotected first round picks. Right. However, if that is not a first or second round pick in next year's draft, you win that trade, because I don't think if you're picking 4, 5, 6, I don't think there's a guy that as good as Derek Queen is right now.
I would agree with you, but it is really 2 lottery picks. Remember, because they gave Indiana's pick back to them so they could trade that pick to Atlanta.
Just
for
don't,
23.
you don't want the top.
So, but you're right. I was thinking about the same thing last night. Watching Queen play, if it's not those are not top 5 lottery picks, I'm fine.
That's a win.
I'm fine, because this guy's going to be a player. And honestly, he's the guy you should be building around. Again, his ability to pass the basketball, his ability to be able to shoot the basketball, getting other people involved. To me, that's the guy again that you want to build around. Fears in him for the future.
Yeah, he plays like I was going to say quickly. He plays like a Euro, a Euro big.
Agreed.
He does, and he's skilled. Like he is skilled, and it's one of those where it's like, that is a great piece to build around.
And the guy. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's right. I'll just say real quickly. Right now, with Zion sidelined and Trey Murphy and Herb Jones being kind of erratic uncharacteristically, you can make a case that Derek Queen's their best player.
Right.
Yeah.
Best player on the court right now. He's the best player.
Right. And he's only going to get better.
Yeah.
And he's only going to get better, no doubt about it. And look, just what he does. The ball moves when he's on the floor. The ball, when Zion's on the floor, the ball sticks. It becomes ISO ball. My biggest problem is, again, this team has become an ISO ball team on offense. When you watch what Phoenix did the other night, passing the basketball, that should be the Pelicans.
Well, it's good because once you see Queen and Zion kind of match up, now you've got Queen who can pull that big out because he's so skilled and because he's a good passer. Like that opens up Zion to go one-on-one if he wants to do. Like that'll be a fascinating pairing when you see those two when Zion gets back.
Hopefully he may start tomorrow night. I wouldn't be surprised if he started.
Well, you would think that at least at some point he's definitely going to be the starter there, no doubt about it. Also, I want to thank our guests tonight. Always good to have these two guys, either on my radio show or my TV show. They're so fantastic. Again, Ricardo LeCompte and also Les East. Again, thank you so much for your time today. All right, again, thanks so much for tuning in. So many ways to catch our program right now. I say it every week, we're blessed. WLAE-TV, WLAE-TV2, Pelican Sports Television. Set your DVR, you'll never miss the program. Also, the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. You catch it also on my website, ericasher.com. Again, so many ways to catch us. Make sure, again, you're setting that DVR. Also, catch me on the radio, 106.7 The Ticket, weekdays 4 to 6. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, the 106.7 The Ticket website. We also have an app, 106.7 The Ticket has an app. Download that. You take the station and the show with you everywhere. iHeartRadio app, TuneIn Radio app, other digital platforms to take the station and the show with you everywhere. I want to thank our underwriters who make this show possible. Please support the underwriters who support our program. And also want to thank our folks here at WLAE-TV who produce our program and do a fantastic job every week. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Alistair Cohn, the best director on the planet, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks for watching.